Let's not outthink the room. Well, that's Greg Cosell. He doesn't outthink the film. 46 years at NFL Films, Thursdays during the football season. We love him. So, all right. So this is where I lean on you. So I think Sheduer's bigger. I think he's really accurate, but he's a different quarterback than Dillon Gabriel. They are different quarterbacks. You've watched you watched Dillon, yep. You've watched Sheduer. What does the film say? What do you see? Who does Stefanski trust? Who do you face in pressure? What does the film say on the Browns' young quarterbacks?
So I think we're trying to figure out who's going to be quarterback number 3 on the Browns.
Right.
Right. Well, Dillon Gabriel is a player that Stefanski really liked because the way it works in the league, Colin, and you know this, is offensive coaches, they think about how does a player work within my scheme. And what Gabriel is he's essentially stylistically similar to a Tua Tagovailoa in that he hits his back foot and the ball comes out. He's a rhythm player. He's a timing player. That's his game. He's a shorter quarterback, so he needs to play that way. And he did that effectively for 2 years in college, one at Oklahoma, one at Oregon. Sanders is a little different player. He's not quite as rhythmic. And he has a tendency, and this showed up on tape, by the way, even though the good outweighed the bad when he played 2 weeks ago, he tends to drift a little in the pocket. He tends to retreat in the pocket. Now, he can throw the ball well, but there are some things he would have to clean up clearly. And, he came from a program at Colorado where there were a ton of tunnel screens, a ton of easy throws. He would need to learn how to better navigate the pocket, although he showed some signs of that. But I think we're talking about, how many quarterbacks are the Browns going to keep? No team keeps 4 quarterbacks. So it's going to be interesting going down the stretch here. And so then Sanders got hurt and missed some time in practice, and that's not going to help him.
I mean, what you're saying basically, and we've seen this from offensive coaches before, run my play. Sean Payton loves Bo Nix, but he really likes him because he runs his play effectively. And what you're saying is Dillon Gabriel, like a Tua, runs the play they call. Sheduer sometimes ad-libs out of it. Is that what you're saying?
It's not that he ad-libs out of it. He's not as efficient in that style of just hitting his back foot and getting the ball out. That's the way Dillon Gabriel has always had to play because of his size. But that's the way coaches think, and I'm not sure a lot of people think that way and understand that. As coaches, the term that's used a lot in the NFL is scheme adaptability, Colin. Coaches think on both sides of the ball in terms of how does a guy fit into my scheme? Can he run my scheme? You know this. Coaches work 16 hours a day, and they're putting in their scheme, their game plan. It starts with OTAs. They want all this executed, and when it's not executed, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah. So Brock Purdy, when the roster was younger, healthier, less brittle, was a really, really good quarterback. Last year, roster gets beat up. He's 1-6 against playoff teams. Now, right now in camp, their wide receiving core is in complete shambles, and they open up against a pretty lively, athletic Seattle defense up in the Northwest. That's a tough opener. So when you looked at film last year of Purdy, going 1-6 down the stretch against playoff teams, was it that he couldn't make certain throws? Was it that the yards after catch were limited? Like 1-6 from Purdy kind of jumps out at you when you look at his early success. Now, without Christian McCaffrey, it's a different offense. But what did the film say about Purdy last year when he had to start games with a patchwork group around him?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Purdy because last week I watched 250 dropbacks of Purdy over a 2-day period. Purdy is a really good quarterback, Colin. The thing with Purdy is he's not Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. He's not necessarily the kind of quarterback, even though he does have mobility, that's going to make those kinds of plays by himself that we think of, that a Mahomes makes, an Allen makes, a Lamar makes. He certainly doesn't navigate the pocket the way a Joe Burrow does. But in terms of being what we call a post-snap operator. In other words, when he takes the snap, he has such an intuitive feel for what he sees, and therefore he's a really, really good timing and anticipation thrower. It's just innate to him. He sees it really quickly. So Purdy is a high-level post-snap operator. He's a really, really good player. You know, it gets to that old question of how many quarterbacks, Colin, and you can go back years and years, are really great when their team's not very good. I mean, that's, you know, Purdy is a really good quarterback. He's just not a dynamic athlete who's necessarily going to make those kind of special plays on his own. But as a pocket quarterback, he's pretty high level.
Boy, too bad Jason McIntyre's not on the show today. He'd be doing backflips after that. Okay, Caleb Williams. I went through the schedule this week, and I said, listen, Chicago historically has struggled in division. They went 1-5 last year in division. They don't have Detroit's roster. They may not have Green Bay's coach or quarterback, and Minnesota's roster is better front to back as well. So what have you seen with Caleb? I'll address it this way. What is Ben Johnson doing to Caleb? Where has he made strides improving Caleb from what the film said last year?
Well, I think the number one thing is not when he throws the ball. He's a great thrower of the football. That is evident. Everybody knows that. And he's obviously a great athlete who can make plays on the move. The main part for Caleb Williams and the key for Ben Johnson is everything from the huddle until the ball is snapped, because they call multiple plays in the huddle. There's a lot of shifts. There's a lot of motions. You've got to be able to do that with the necessary speed and efficiency so you get to the line of scrimmage and there's time enough on the shot clock, because you're going to have the shifts. You're going to have the motions. Now it's up to Caleb to decide, if there's 2 plays called, which one am I going to run? That part of quarterbacking is the bigger deal for Caleb Williams as he's learning the Ben Johnson offense, because Ben Johnson will set you up beautifully with defined and clean reads and throws. And Caleb Williams throws it as well as anybody. I mean, you can see that. Everybody knew that when he came out. That was never the issue. But it's really from the point of the huddle until the ball is snapped. That's going to be the main part that he has to become efficient at.
So much of there's such an advantage for a Jaden Daniels getting a Cliff Kingsbury, where a Justin Fields has had a lot of defensive coaches. I do think Sean Payton, Bo Nix, I don't think Bo would have been that good had he had a defensive coach, perhaps. I think just offensive coaches and quarterbacks, they rebuild O-lines quicker. There's a sensibility about it.
Sure.
So I look at Jaxson Dart. 3 years with Lane Kiffin is high-level coaching, and then he gets Brian Daboll, more than capable, won a playoff game with Daniel Jones. And my thing is, you can tell me that he's not quite ready, but 3 years of Lane and a camp with Brian Daboll, when you look at the film of Jaxson Dart in preseason, do you see areas where, ooh, whoa, he's not ready? Or does he see the field? What does the film tell you?
Well, they really did a good job in the preseason of allowing him to get comfortable. And that's what the preseason really is for. A lot of empty sets. Okay, he's very comfortable in empty sets. It spreads the field. They got a lot of base defensive looks that were not difficult to read. They played a little bit up-tempo, which he's certainly used to in Lane Kiffin. So they did a lot of things that help him really get comfortable. So when he's on the field, you know, he's not going through major progressions here. He's not doing that. If he becomes the starter, and we'll see how all this plays out, you know, who knows what's going on there, but I don't know how you feel, but there's a part of me that wouldn't be surprised if he's named the starter, but we'll see how that plays out. But they tried to make it easy for him so that he can make confident throws, which he did. And he obviously has movement ability. So, well, you know, obviously when the regular season starts and teams game plan, things get different because you're going to see a lot of different things. But he certainly was efficient, just like Caleb Williams was super efficient against the Bills, you know, second and third team players. But that's what you want. You want efficiency so the quarterback feels good.
I said I didn't think the Steelers was a great choice by Aaron Rodgers, much like the Jets. Defensive head coach, unpredictable offensive line, inability in recent years to run the ball. And I said, this is an offensive line under Mike Tomlin that has had 6 years and not a lot to show for it. They have not run the ball consistently. They lose Najee Harris, their left tackle. And I just thought San Francisco, Minnesota, I thought there were better spots for him. So if you go back to the Jets and Aaron last year in the film, it could look a little bit like the Steelers to me are a better run version of the Jets, right? Like a better front office, a better coach. Go back to the Jets last year. Is Aaron way past his prime? Does he do anything that resembles the great Aaron?
Yeah, he throws the ball super well. I think when you sign Aaron Rodgers or when he's your quarterback, to me, the bigger issue is how you mesh what you want to do as an offensive coordinator, and it's Arthur Smith, with the fact that one of Rodgers' greatest strengths has always been his ability to control the game at the line of scrimmage and be able to adjust and change plays. So that, I think, for an offensive coordinator, that's something that you really have to work on, because you don't want to take that away from Aaron Rodgers, because anybody who works with Aaron Rodgers will tell you he's among the smartest quarterbacks they've ever seen, and he's so good at the line of scrimmage in controlling the game. So to me, the larger question is, how does Arthur Smith mesh what he wants to do with his offense, because he's got a clearly defined offensive approach, with the fact that Aaron Rodgers is so good at the line of scrimmage and likes to change things based on what he sees.
Yeah. So an interesting storyline that has developed this offseason in training camp and in the preseason is Matthew Stafford's health. So if you think about last year, the Rams were driving in the snow in Philadelphia after a Puka Nacua completion to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, who trounced Kansas City in the Super Bowl. So my take is the defense, there's a lot of talent. I'm sure the film says that, especially in the box. There's a lot of talent up front. But when I look at their offense and their point differential last year, does the film tell you this is about McVay and Stafford's brilliance, not really the offensive roster composition? Because I said the other day, I said, if Matt Stafford doesn't play, this is the only team in the league that could win the Super Bowl or finish 4-13. Because I think even Kansas City, with their roster and their overall talent and coaching, could win 7-8 games if Mahomes got banged up. When you look at the Rams on film, what is their offense? Is it basically the brilliance of two guys and kind of a limited offensive roster?
To some extent. I mean, they don't have a great offensive roster, and certainly the wide receiver position now is they don't have great players there. Nacua is really good, but he's a certain kind of player. And Stafford has just always been so good. And another guy that is really good at understanding what he's seeing, changing plays, calling audibles, still has a big-time arm, can make any throw, an aggressive thrower, which you really need to be in the NFL. And McVay has always been so good in terms of formations, shifts, motions, getting guys open, making it tough for the defense. But, yeah, you're right. Offensively, they do not have great players throughout that offense. And Stafford's injury, the back, particularly, don't forget, he had back injuries when he was 25 and 26. This is not brand new. And now he's, I think, 37. So, I love watching Matthew Stafford play. He's always been one of my favorite guys to watch on film. But I'd be a little concerned about that back injury. That's a tough deal as you get older.
Okay, finally, I've always loved Sam Darnold. Last year, through 14 weeks, it was a very fun story for me. But when you watched him, was it about Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson? Do you see him going to Seattle with a defensive coach, with an offensive line that was bad last year? Do you think he replicates it? Is he now overvalued based on a remarkable coach, Justin Jefferson, solid run game? Where are you on Sam Darnold off of last season? What does the film tell you?
Well, I think that the reason that Seattle wanted Darnold is because with Kubiak there as the OC, they're going to run a lot of similar concepts as the Vikings did. They're putting him under center because I believe Darnold last year was either the second or third most dropbacks as a conventional play-action quarterback, meaning he was under center. That's what he did really well under Kevin O'Connell, and that's what Kubiak is going to do. They're going to start with the outside zone run game, put Darnold under center, and let the play-action game be a foundation of what they do. There's less reading involved in the play-action game, particularly when you're under center. It holds the second-level defenders better because they have a longer time to wait to see if it's run or pass. So I think the thought process was Darnold was very good running that style of offense, that philosophical style, and now we're going to do something very similar. And Colin, by the way, most quarterbacks need a particular style, a particular philosophy to be effective. There's very few transcendent quarterbacks that you can just say, let's do anything and they'll be great. So that, to me, is not a knock on Darnold. That's the way it is with most quarterbacks.
Greg Cosell, 46 years, NFL Films. This point forward for the next 20, 22 weeks, it's going to be Greg Cosell on Thursdays. As always, great seeing you.
Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it.
You bet. Well, Middlecoff, you and J-Mac have been selling me on Brock Purdy for years. I had, eat a little crow there. He loves him on film.